We are live. We are now in hour 16 of the CosmoQuest Hangoutathon 2024. This is a fundraiser. I'm required to state that we have met our initial goal of $5,400, which means we can maintain things as is for the time being. We have gone past it. We are actually currently at $5,817. We have stretch goals, and they are palindromes. Our stretch goal allows us to bring back our newsletter for the entire year. It is getting all the way to $7,557 this weekend. If we hit that stretch goal, we go to stretch goal number 2, which is also a palindrome. Thank you, Alan Gross, for the suggestion. It is $10,001, and that allows us to get Allie a new production computer. We have dreams of a Mac Studio M4 chipset for her, and this will be possible with your help. Now, the funding that we raise funds a whole lot of things around CosmoQuest, and one of the things that it funds is production of 365 Days of Astronomy, which is in its 15th year, which means we probably should have done this in the 15th hour, but that was the first one of the days, so we weren't going to do that. So we are in hour 16 talking about 15 years of 365 Days of Astronomy. I'm really hoping that the project director of Aviva Yamani will still join us. But right now I have Richard Drum, who's been producing the show pretty much since the beginning. I think you've been here since day 0.
It's like 11 and a half years.
Okay, so you're the second editor, and I apparently have forgotten who the first editor was.
I don't think I knew. Yeah.
Okay. We are joined by Carolyn Collins Peterson. Having to check. Yes,
Good morning.
I got all the syllables correct.
You did.
And she is a planetarian person, an educator, a podcaster, and one of her books was one of the very first books I ever wrote a book review for Sky and Telescope on.
Which one was that?
It was the Encyclopedia of Astronomy that you and your husband did way back in like 2003.
I did an entry for one, yes.
Yeah. No, well, there was like an entire collection. It was 2003.
Not ringing a bell, but okay.
It may have had a different name, and that's just how my brain categorized
that's possible. It. Yeah.
Joining us is Rob Sparks, who is with NORLab, the extremely awkwardly named facility that does some of the best optical and infrared astronomy. And he has been with us talking about dark sky protection and measuring all sorts of different things in Galileoscope. Since day 0 of this project, we have also known each other since we were both at Michigan State University. The connections go back a long ways.
Go back a ways, yes. Longtime friend. I don't call people old friends at this age anymore.
Fair. Also with us is Brian Dunning, one of the other OG podcasters who's been out there trying to put more critical thinking into the world since the early 2000s. You started in what, 2005 or 6?
6.
Okay.
Yeah, and October 3rd, 2006 was the first show.
All right, so you are...
There was like only 2,000 podcasts that existed then.
You are 2 months younger than Astronomy Cast. And you're still going, and now you're doing TV specials. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, trying to. We're working on our 3rd feature film right now, which is going to be a pretty big project. I'm not supposed to talk about parts of it, but everyone says that, and no one ever believes it.
I understand. And also with us is more coffee. Also with us is Mike Simmons, who is another refugee of organizing the International Year of Astronomy.
Yeah, survivor.
Um,
Mhm.
and 365 Days of Astronomy is a legacy project of the International Year of Astronomy 2009. And I was on the new media task force, surprising no one, and working on bringing together folks to do things like this podcast, a Second Life Island, all sorts of different projects. And you were out in the real world working with projects like The World at Night and 100 Hours of Astronomy and so much more.
Yeah, yeah. I ran the 100 Hours of Astronomy Cornerstone project, and we probably got 1 million people look through telescopes in one night, and other things. And that's about the time I was starting other new organizations, international stuff. So that really kickstarted a lot of what I did, and it created some sort of legacy projects based on that. But there's a certain amount of PTSD that we were all suffering as a result of that experience. It
I,
was
yeah,
it was insane.
I still hate Joomla because of the International Year of Astronomy. Um,
Yeah, oh, Joomla.
yeah, and
Yeah,
Django.
I worked in Joomla for quite a long time myself.
Oh,
Yeah.
Now, over 15 years, we have seen the media landscape change. We've seen our understanding of astronomy and planetary science radically change. We have seen telescopes come and go. Looking back over these 15 years, what are the highlights to each of you? The things both that you are most proud of and the things that you're going to be telling people about when you're little old doddering science communicators.
I'm that already.
You and Richard, I heard earlier today that there was a 108-year-old Navajo code talker who just passed away, which tells me you still have another generation to influence in both of you.
Good, good. I've just begun to daughter, so I guess I've got some time to go.
So, what are your things that you remember strongest? Anyone jump in? It's morning. Let your brain
Well, I think
process.
you first contacted us about 365 days there was a meeting in Honolulu, I think.
Yeah, it was the
And I think
summer
you hadn't even
yes.
named it. Yeah, you hadn't even named it at that point.
Yeah.
And I was working on several projects. One of them was the Griffith Observatory exhibits. And we at that time were trying to figure out how much audio visual we were going to be putting in them. So it was interesting to hear you guys talk in Honolulu about what works best for people. And I think podcasting was sort of new. And
Yeah.
about the same time, I started working on a series of what they called vodcasts at the time for MIT Haystack Observatory. So it was all of a piece for me, although we didn't start doing the 365 days for what, 2 or 3 more years after that, I guess. I think. Anyway, so then when I got involved in that, I think we did like one a month, for the first
Yeah.
year. And it was really a pretty busy time. I remember thinking, oh, there's this fire hose of astronomy. How are we going to fit it all into 12 podcasts? But here you've gone on for 15 years. So obviously the fire hose is getting used.
It's true. It's true. And we're still getting more than 1 million downloads a year. And
Wow.
it's been really amazing to see, especially how people's careers have advanced and the successes coming from everybody. Other things that you look back on, other people.
I remember the first time, I don't even remember who it was, asked me, "Hey, do you want to do one of the 365 podcasts?" And for some reason, I was like super busy and I couldn't. But I said, "Hey, I can give you one of the astronomy related podcasts I've done of my show. I'll put like a new introduction on it. And
Yeah.
is that okay?" And they go, "Yeah, sure." So you ran that. And then like a year later, some other guy, I don't remember who it was going to do one. And for some reason, he just downloaded one of my episodes and sent it in. And it was the same one that I had played. I thought that was funny.
That
Mm.
is awesome.
Yes.
I'll just mention two of my favorite podcasts I did over the years, both strangely involved artist in residence we had at different observatories here. We had artists in residence at the
Hmm.
Tucson Observatory at Kitt Peak here back around 2010 or 11, somewhere in there. And they did a wonderful podcast with me talking about their experiences up there. And I forget, I can't remember. I was trying to look up their names. I can't find their names. I forgot the names. So it was so long ago, unfortunately. And we also had one who was a poet in residence at Cerro Tololo Inter-American Observatory, and this wonderful poetry about the dark energy and dark energy camera on the podcast one time. And she was just phenomenal. So I would love to go back and find those two podcasts. Maybe we put those in the notes somewhere here if we can find those.
So
I think one thing that I just remembered was after we did around the same time that we did those, I got contacted by Astronomical Society of the Pacific, and they wanted to do not something similar, but they wanted to do something that was more in line with their mission. And we ended up doing something called Astronomy Behind the Headlines, which was interviews of scientists. And Skype, and I think Skype and a couple of other tools were fairly new, and I don't think OBS was out yet. So we were Skyping these people, and I just have these memories of people saying, "Oh yeah, I heard, you guys were doing some work with." I guess they were referencing it as 365 days, but we did. It was sort of a these things sort of fed into each other. I think once you started doing that, then there were people who wanted to do that for their own observatory. So we did that for Astronomical Society of the Pacific for a couple of years. When I'd be talking to these scientists at 3 a.m, and they're coming down off the mountain or something, and they're talking about their work. It was pretty cool.
now, Rich, you've gotten to listen to just about every day over the years, and you have caused me to like startle my dog awake laughing more than once with some of the comments that you've made while editing things. What are the things that are most memorable to you over the years?
I guess probably I'm one of my most memorable episodes of 365 was the one titled "Are We Alone?" that I managed to secure a communicator award for.
Yeah.
And we've also gotten oh shoot, what's the one that they do at Dragon Con? The
Skeptic's Guide to the Universe?
no.
You mean the awards?
The
awards?
award
Oh,
that they
Parsec
award
Award.
at
Yes.
Parsec, yes.
Oh, the
A Parsec
Parsec,
award,
yeah.
yes. So we've gotten a couple of communicator awards and a Parsec. But yeah, I had a lot of fun writing
Parsec Award.
yeah, there it is right there. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I did a sort of a deep dive on the "Are We Alone?" and I did the math, and I was like, something, it doesn't feel right. And then I checked the math again, and I was off like 2 orders of magnitude. I'm like, okay, we're going to have a slightly different ending now, and so I rewrote it with the right math, and it still turned out pretty well. And our closest advanced civilization I came up with was 7,000 light years away. Yeah, so it's going to be hard to have a conversation with a 7,000-year delay. Yeah. Oh well,
Very true.
they're out there. They just ain't coming here. Is what I tell people.
I think
But they're smarter than us. The laws of physics don't apply to them. I had $1 for every time I tried to argue that point. Oh.
You just change the gravitational constant of the universe. That's all.
little thing. My favorite behind the scenes moment was language sometimes makes things confusing. And we got a podcast that we interpreted the title as cosmic lattice, as in like lattice work. And we were like, oh, is this going to be pseudoscience? What is this going to be? We were having a discussion about, can we deal with pseudoscience? And we're like, okay, we have to listen to it. And it turned out the title was cosmic lettuce, as in the fruity vegetable. And it was just an everyday podcast. There was no weirdness about it. It wasn't anything fancy. It was just a cute name we misheard and assumed the worst, and then got a wonderful laugh about. And then over the years, there have been various podcasters that have taken us down into the land of laughing so hard and then asking, can we really air this? Mike Simonson, whose last name I have for years confused with Mike Simmons' last name. He unfortunately is no longer with us, but he wrote and did some of the podcasts from the first year. Had this amazing story of how, as a child, he and his friends pretended to do an Apollo mission by going up in the attic of the garage, and they had like taken their food with them. They had a waste disposal system, which was a garbage bag and a bucket, and then they discussed how they failed to take into account like how hot it would get in the attic and living with their waste
Ah,
disposal system. And I was dying laughing. In 15 years, this is still my favorite episode because I can see a young science nerd doing this entire thing and failing in the disposal of the waste disposal system to the tune of splattering occurring. And it was a precious moment in time that every Gen Xer can imagine from when we were pre-technology finding ways to amuse ourselves by building randomness in the attic. Um, these moments, and we've also seen as we go technology and understanding of podcasting change. How many of you still have to explain to people what a podcast is?
mm,
Yeah.
Okay, you do
Really?
hit it occasionally,
not
Brian.
lately.
Nation. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
And when we started, though, no one knew what a podcast was. And to see that
yep.
evolution from having to explain um, the iPod was a grace.
Yeah, for me, it was because we'd been in production for a long time before that. We were used to producing longer, well, planetarium shows, video, that sort of thing,
Mhm.
30 to 40 minutes of production. So cramming it all down into a short version, it kind of reminded me of the old Mark Twain thing about I can't remember how it goes now. I'd write you a short letter, but it takes too long, essentially. But this is, trying to get a lot of information into 5 minutes, which has always been the challenge, but it also forces a lot of creativity, which I think is what you're seeing in a lot of these new ones, a lot of these that come in that just have you howling on the floor.
Yeah. So we hit 15 years. We've been a springboard that allows a lot of new voices to grow. Cosmic Safari is one of our contributors that we're watching just grow in amazing ways down out of Africa. Um, what do you hope for podcasting in the future? Are we going to go the way of radio and be forced to go to video? I would much, much rather
Well,
do
video
audio.
certainly adds a level of complexity, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I kind of wonder about that about audiobooks, and people are really wondering if that they should be more video produced, which basically turns them into a movie. But audiobooks are really popular, and people pop them into the car or whatever they're listening to when they're on the way to work or whatever. So I've done them when I've been on planes flying places. So I think what's the longest one that you've ever gotten?
The longest
The,
podcast
the
episode?
longest
Podcast.
365
Yeah, the longest
episode.
yeah,
I would say close to an hour and a half.
really. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we just did one a couple weeks ago that was an hour 26,
Hmm.
something like that. Yeah, they can be long.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the public attention span is like. I mean, are people
yeah.
trending towards more short 5 minute bites or 10-minute bites or whatever? It's a good question.
Well, I love this because there are such a wide variety of
Yeah.
lengths. You get the bite-sized ones, but you also have the ones that go very in depth. So I think that's a strength of this podcast more.
As
Yeah,
long
I
as
think
Yeah. My
that's
show is short. It's 15 minutes, and a lot of people say they love that because you can always get one in while you're walking your dog or whatever.
yeah, that's what I
so.
like about them.
I would talk about my favorite 365 Days of Astronomy episodes if I could really remember anything, which I can't. So I won't. But as far as the future, when I started doing things online, they were webcasts. They weren't regular, but that, that's what it was, and web this and web that.
Yeah.
And now we have a new video podcast coming up, which is unusual because people don't want to do video. I've just learned that none of the channels even carry them except for, excuse me, except for one, I think Apple.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
so it's a whole different thing. And there was a thing called vidcasts, I think, for a while. So
Podcast. Yeah.
audio is the whole thing, but we have to do it because we're showing pictures and video of the guests, which is really critical to what we're doing. But it's basically going to end up being audio for most people, and then if they want to, they can go see the other parts. So that's quite a change. But at the same time, video is everything. But the video, usually, from what I've seen from my progeny, the latest generation, are like 2 minutes and stupid, but
Yeah, TikTok.
yeah,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Even YouTube.
Yeah.
And our things are going to be an hour, well, up to an hour,
Yeah.
45 minutes. So I feel kind of old-fashioned, but I'm just following the lead of people my grandchildren's age and doing what they tell me.
Mm.
What
Yeah, Apple had a thing once upon a time. Once upon a time, Apple did this thing, and for maybe 6 months, and then they canceled it, where you could have still pictures
Oh,
attached,
Oh,
yeah.
embedded in your podcast, and that could have been very useful. But they canceled it, and so I don't
We
know.
tried that with Astronomy
Yeah.
Cast, and it took me hours and hours to do one episode because it was
Mm,
an awkward technology and trying to format everything right. Yeah, that was back when they had the color iPod before the iPhone came out. Those little black
right.
devices with the tiny screen, and everything had to be readable on the tiny screen.
Uh,
Um, I think we did 4 episodes of Astronomy Cast that way, and then I was like, no, no.
Yeah. It's a lot of work. It's
Yeah,
really and I mean, you could slap it together quickly, but then it looks like it. So
yeah.
you really do have to spend the time.
yeah, the programmers need to spend some quality time with how it's done by the producers.
Well,
Yeah.
there are there are new packages coming out. I mean, if you're running into Adobe After Effects or something, I mean,
Mm,
that's like a complete, really tough learning curve to do. I've downloaded a
mm,
couple of others that make it a little bit easier, but you still have to finesse visual transitions and that sort of thing, and that's where you spend a lot of time.
mm. I actually use Final Cut Pro
Yeah,
to
well,
edit 365.
yeah.
So there's a space right there that I could slap stills in, but yeah, let's not.
You use Final Cut to edit audio?
Yep,
He's an old
Well,
school
right then.
video guy.
yeah.
Well,
I've
yeah.
been using Final Cut since Y2K, I think, something like that, when it first came out.
Best tool is the one that works.
And that
Yeah, the one you know the
know.
best, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I just downloaded one called Shotcut, which is actually pretty easy to use if you wanted to slap something together fast. But again, if you're reaching a wide audience, there's a certain amount of visual literacy you have to pour into your production. Otherwise, you can tell who really didn't know what they were doing with their tools.
One of the things that I'm really enjoying is the discussions between the generations that are starting to occur in the short form video. Because you're seeing Gen X like, don't give me a how-to video, just write the words down. I want to read
Hey,
this.
boomer here, I say the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and we have a roommate who's a Gen Z, and he's walking around the house watching YouTube videos on his phone. And his generation, if it's not a YouTube video, it does not exist. And so,
Mm,
where I go to Google to look up how do you do this random esoteric thing, he goes to YouTube and looks it up. And there's almost always someone, and inevitably, the worse their English, the better their knowledge, who's there to help you. And so it's just kind of amazing to see this generational change between who's going to text versus video. And this was not something I was expecting. And now I'm wondering if the reading rates between the generations are different, and the hearing rates,
Probably
because
are.
like the younglings are listening to things at like 1.5x and don't know how to watch YouTube at normal speeds. And it's so different. It's so different. I am old now.
Well,
Yes.
for some things I don't mind watching a video, but like I do a lot of sewing, and so somebody will say, how to do these mitered corners. I'll go watch somebody do that.
Yeah.
But you don't really need one for a recipe for biscuits, or something like that. So there's certain things that I really don't want to watch a video for, but then other things you do. And I think in astronomy, obviously, if we're going to be talking about these gorgeous things in the universe, you really would like to have images, whether they're playing them back at 1.5 or not.
Yeah, that's something I noticed when I started listening to PBS NewsHour, which I watch on TV, and they started having the audio on the radio. I'd listen to it during my commute, and I realized I wasn't missing anything.
Hmm.
That if you watch most programs, most of the stuff they're putting up there is not
Hmm.
necessary. They just got to put something up there.
Hmm.
So, but in my case, one of the many ways in which I am neurodiverse, which is to say my brain is really weird, is that I don't I like videos, but I just can't follow them. It's one of the reasons I everything I learned in school, most of which actually I learned everything out of school, was reading. And
Mhm.
I like the videos when I have to see something. Otherwise, I just want to read it. And I can read it faster than the people are talking. So I'm one of those, Pamela, who will watch videos at 1.5x, 2x, whatever, just to get to where I just want to get through it. So it's I don't know if it's generational, but I think there is a big
Mm.
generational component, but everybody needs to find what works best for them.
Maybe
Mm.
as we get older, we
You know,
get less patient with things. We just want to get
Mm.
through it.
Yeah, I'm definitely impatient with getting
Yeah.
information. I just want to know right now, and I just been reading something else about another thing online, and it's like this. I don't want you to tell me why this is important. I want bullet points.
we
I'm
had
an
an
old.
interesting experience recently. We're pretty tight with the people right here at OSU Cascades. We're in Central Oregon. And they put together a focus group of a whole bunch of students. And I selected 20 different YouTube channels that are among the most popular science communication channels. And we picked one of their most popular episodes from the last month or so. And we just brought in like 30-second clips of each of these shows. And all the students had a week to take them home and watch them all. And then we came back in for the focus group, and we would just play 10 seconds of each to remind the students of each video and what did they like, what did they don't like. And we learned a lot of really interesting information. The first thing, it was surprising that pretty much all the students were in unison on what they liked and what they didn't like, what makes them want to watch more, what makes them tune out more. And, it's we've got a short video. The reason we're doing this is we've got a short video series kind of on one of our back burners until we're finished working on the current feature. But you've got to basically make our plan anyway, based on this focus group, is everything's going to be in 4 formats. You write a 1,500 word script, and that's going to be for the landscape format YouTube video, for the text on the website, and for the audio podcast. And then you write a 75 word version of that 1,500 word script for the vertical format, YouTube short,
Yeah.
TikTok, whatever. And 75 word version cannot reference the long form. It can't say go to blah, blah, blah to reach the full show. They want the complete content there, not interested in a link to something else. So for me, it's a really exciting challenge to condense content that much and still make it a good presentation.
Maybe
No,
4
it's 30
sentences.
seconds.
Yeah, that's about like a typical museum,
Yeah.
caption. Yeah, get cosmology into 75 words. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Are you
Mm.
going to be publishing those results somewhere?
No. Nope. That's our pot of gold.
Mm.
Damn it. As a researcher, you are hurting my soul because you have data and you are keeping it locked
Yes.
up.
I'm pretty sure everyone here has access to a university if you want to form your own focus group.
Mm.
Now I'm
Well,
gonna
Brian,
have to
it would
like,
be interesting to have you. It would be interesting to have you do that again in about 5 years, and see
Mm.
what changes.
Mm.
Yeah.
Has the bandwidth shrunk? Yeah.
Yeah.
Must have a long attention span because I don't like listening to things at those high speeds. I mean, things change at high speeds, and I do a lot of theater and comedy, and the sense of timing is off when you
yeah.
listen to things at different speeds. And
Hmm.
I've read Astronomy Cast with Pamela and Phasia, that warmth and rapport you have is just not the same at 1.5. And Brian, I've listened to Skeptoid for a long time, and I don't like you as much at 1.5. I love you at normal speed life.
Oh,
You lose
oh,
something
really?
at
Because I talk so
1.5.
slow, people have to put it to 1.5.
I don't know. That's who you are to me, and I love it. And it's just not quite the same at
But
1.5.
yeah, that's a different thing. I mean, when you're talking about personalities and connections with the people, nobody sits around drinking coffee or whatever and says, "Could you talk faster?" I mean, it's just the rapport is a different thing. Content, I just want to. I'm like on Star Trek, when some alien entity starts sucking everything out of these so-called memory banks and it starts sparking and all that stuff. Just get it in my brain and be done with it. But yeah, personal wise, yeah, I can sit for hours and talk to people, and often do. Yeah.
One of the weird things that we've run across is with Escape Velocity Space News, people were like, "You need to speak faster" in our comments, and I was like, "I what?" And it
Wow.
turns out that because people are used to news broadcasts having people that are speaking at a faster rate, when they're
Ah.
receiving news, they get confused when you speak at the slower rate that is used in a conversational
No,
podcast.
conversational. Yeah.
And so I had to be like,
Hmm.
God damn it, speed things up. Okay, I can do this. Grumble, grumble. And it turns out I will mispronounce words more often when I try and speak faster. So I'm not sure this is necessarily for the best, but I am learning to pronounce things faster.
I
Well,
get
when I edit Astronomy Cast, I actually go through and try to fix anything that's mispronounced, and if there's any dead air in there, I try to cut that out.
Yeah.
Second and a half, I'll let go, but if it's like 2 or 3 seconds of dead air, I go, nope, nope. I'm gonna keep the pace up.
Well, it's true. We've been kind of conditioned by the fast news reader approach of, they're going to get one story in 30 seconds or maybe a minute. If, you have a program producer tell you you've got 2 minutes for this story. And it's like, doesn't seem like it's going to give you enough time, but I think that's what's conditioned people.
Yeah. And
I
there's
don't
a
watch
thing,
much TV news though.
yeah, yeah. There's a thing now too where people are making videos and they cut out the time between the end of one sentence and the beginning of another. So there's this
Yeah.
disconnect all the time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like how many scenes did they have to film to do this? It's really kind of disruptive.
Yeah, they're kind of like
Yeah.
mashups. Yeah.
Yeah, Crash Course Astronomy is one that they've got an editor, a young lady. I think her name is Michelle. She intentionally cuts out the in between sentences when she can. Now, if Phil Plait, for instance, is on camera and talking, and then says something, and then says another sentence, she'll leave that on. But if he's off camera, boom, there's no chance for a inhale
Yeah, it
before a
makes it sound
sentence.
rather breathless. I don't like that
And
approach.
well, it's
Yeah.
also feels very rushed and
Yeah,
off
yeah.
Yeah,
balance.
if
I
if
just don't
if
like
you if you feel like you need to edit Phil Plait, then you need to find another job.
it.
Well, you might have to edit them for other reasons.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
That was editing him was her job. She
Yeah.
she
Yeah,
does
yeah.
all of Crash Course Astronomy and other
Yeah.
crash courses too.
What I appreciate about the way Ali edits me is for the video, she will leave in the breaths because you see me making them.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
will leave in the timing of the breath, but remove the gasp in the microphone for the podcast. So podcast listeners get the space, but they don't hear the asthma. It's appreciated. I don't know if Allie's watching, but you are
You know, one of the
appreciated.
things that drives me crazy when I'm editing is mouth clicks.
Yeah.
Cannot
Oh,
seem to get rid of
he
those. Boy,
pops.
those drive me crazy.
Little
Yeah.
smack of the lips. Yeah, Fraser does that. He'll go, Astronomy Cast, or welcome to
Oh,
Astronomy
yeah.
Cast. I'll
Yeah.
go, oh, okay, I'll leave the in, but not the. It immediately precedes it.
Well, I think if AI is
Tight
going to do
edits
anything good for us,
sometimes.
you can teach your AI how to take out mouth clicks. And that'd be it.
Here's the thing I learned from Allie, who is going to be doing our new podcast as
Ah,
well when we can afford her, but we'll start. And is that we're doing a video podcast, but we absolutely have to have the audio out
Yeah.
of it for a podcast because otherwise nobody will ever know about it. Um, and the video podcast is pretty informal. I'm talking to people, I'm interviewing people around the world and showing their stuff and so on. And it's a casual thing. We're sitting around the table, drinking coffee. We're not worrying about the pace or anything like that, and talking about neat things. But she said, no, the video looks fine, but I really need to clean up the audio.
Mm-hmm.
And the audio, and I guess it's a thing because you don't have as much information because you don't have the video. I'm not sure, but she said the video has to be cleaned up. The audio, the little things in there, nobody cares.
Yeah.
So that's
Hmm.
more critical.
It's again that they see you breathing and no one's gonna worry about like I think my favorite example was oh, I forget which episode it was, but I was completely exasperated. And I was like, God damn it, I have to discuss this thing I don't want to discuss was the headspace. And so I hit record and I went, hello and welcome to Escape Velocity Space News.
Yeah.
And I said, hello, welcome to Escape Velocity Space News in the completely normal, but there was that at the beginning. And she left it in the video. And so I watched the premiere of the video and I'm like, oh. And everyone appreciated it because of the topic. It made perfect sense. And it was not in the podcast. But it made perfect sense in the video.
No, that's part of the showmanship for the video, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, sometimes that context is really important.
Yes. Yeah. And we're about to have an Aviva. She's going to make it in.
Hey.
Yay.
So there's so much content that we try and explain using audio with podcasts. And I have over the years gone to making some of the most ridiculous analogies. That's my personal go-to. And each of us has a different way of trying to get people to think through different concepts and ideas. What are the tools that you think it's most important for new podcasters who may want to become part of 365 Days of Astronomy in the future? What are the most important things for them to understand?
I think, I'll jump in on this one because what you're talking about is how you figure out how to explain things to people doing public outreach, which
Yeah.
I've done for many decades. And, I get things like nobody's been able to explain to me what quantum mechanics is. Can you tell me?
Oh,
And
Lord.
In 75 words. Yeah.
And so, and there's just so much you can do. And also doing tours up at Mount Wilson Observatory, and I have to explain interferometry to people because of the charge.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. People don't need to understand the physics behind everything. They don't need, they just want to understand something. They just want a grasp of it. So with those things, the person went away satisfied with the explanation of quantum mechanics, which of course could mean that I was completely BSing him and he thought I was telling him the truth and I wasn't. But in fact, all I did was give him examples of where it applies and why it's necessary. And that's it, because there isn't anything more you can do. I'm not going to try and explain wave packets to him.
Yeah.
So I use analogies. Interferometry, throw pebbles into water. You throw two, and you get these little places where the waves interfere with each other. There's information there.
Yeah.
They don't need to know how you get it out of there, which is good because I wouldn't be able to explain that to them at all.
Mm,
So you want to get across the idea. It's kind of like getting the feel for something.
mm. I always look at it as imagine your grandmother, you're a 20-year-old or whatever, and your 90-year-old grandmother wants to understand what a supernova is. Try to imagine how you would describe a supernova or whatever to your grandmother. And it ain't easy.
Actually, I've taken the same approach in most of the work I do, but I'm basically explaining it to my dad, who never graduated high school, but was really interested in astronomy, so I could strike that balance. I'm working on a project right now where we're having to teach a number of outreach specialists at a facility how to talk about the night sky to people and make it conversational. And they sent me a whole list of things they wanted to touch on in this 30-minute or so presentation. And a lot of it is so more technical than you really want to talk about when you're out under the stars with people. And so I'm trying to make it conversational and like you're explaining it to my dad, essentially.
And in the part of this that I left out in my explanation, which took it away from Pamela's question, so I'll bring it back, is that in explaining interferometry and quantum mechanics and distances between things in the cosmos, all these things where you're waving your hands a lot because you don't have any way that you can draw the pictures that would show them exactly what it is. That's the problem with podcasting. And assuming we're talking about audio.
Yeah, we need a blackboard.
You need a blackboard or something. Boy, that's okay. Richard and I are the only ones that remember blackboards here.
I do.
I
sure
do. I
Charlie
taught with
Rob do.
blackboards. Yeah, I was teaching when blackboards were still a thing.
Yeah. But the thing is, for podcasters, you're going to be explaining stuff that you really can't do just with the words, but you got to figure out a way to do it. And that's kind of the hard part, but it absolutely can be done. And I would find ways that you can explain things to people and convey the information. You have to assume you're talking to somebody that is a completely blank slate. You can't assume anything about what they know because if they have prior knowledge, that makes it easier. You got to figure they don't. And if you do that, you might talk below some people's knowledge, which is okay. But if you talk above it, you're not connecting. You're wasting your time.
It's the word pictures you have to draw. So it's the language you choose as you're writing it. And then again, there's always going to be some word picture you use that you don't realize maybe somebody who's blind is listening to your podcast and doesn't have that context.
There you go.
Or something like that.
Go.
So you really have to be really careful.
Yeah. Hi, Aviva.
Hi, Aviva.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm sorry, I'm totally late.
Time zones are not your friend. They're none of our friends.
I'm sorry.
Good morning.
Well,
night.
it's midnight, so yeah, it's like 15 minutes before midnight.
Okay.
So
I
think,
honestly wish the flat earthers were right because then we'd all be at the same time zone. It'd make my life so much easier.
I think it was Arthur Clarke or somebody who said we had to just have one worldwide time zone.
We do, UTC.
Well, that's true, but I mean, we all use it. But then, you have people.
but then there's daylight
It's dark at
savings
700.
time and the offset with UTC changes.
Yeah.
That is
Okay.
a way of taking something difficult and making it harder.
Same offset all year here. We're not.
That's right, Arizona.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, they need to ditch this daylight saving time. And it's saving time, not savings time.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
off ramp.
I knew someone was going to bring that up.
I thought that stood for stupid.
Hey, I have a question for Pamela and Richard. What do you think about the pace of science change over the 15 years that you've seen as you're producing these and editing them? Because those of us who create them, we're sort of in the moment, but you guys have this long-term view of how things have changed.
Well, some of the 365s, we can dig deep into the past. For instance, when Pamela and Fraser are unable to record an astronomy cast, Viva and I will dig deep into the history and go back to 2008 even, and pull up like episode 25 on AC. But that's a good thing in some respects, and some of the things get a little dated when they're talking about how great it'll be once the Hubble launches or whatever. It's like, oh, wow, no, it's been up there forever. But no, but in a lot of cases, those early episodes of Astronomy Cast are kind of the basics. Well, what is a supernova? Something simple, and so it's there's good and bad to everything, I guess.
The two things that have become most clear to me in recent years are science advances according to the pace of technology and the amount of funding it is given. Mm-hmm. And so we see so many more discoveries when new technology hits orbit, when new technology gets launched, when new technology gets opened on a mountaintop. And the amount of discoveries are related to how much funding is available for people to use that data. And that has been really hard to watch, because what we've been seeing in recent years is we're getting more and more technology and less funding for people to use the technology. Mm-hmm. The other thing that has been super exciting to me is, for the longest time, we always talked in terms of, well, galaxy formation is either going to be top up or bottom down. Hypernova are going to be caused by either massive stars, or I forget what the other explanation was, or a companion star to a supernovae. Reionization was caused by dark matter is all these different things over and over. It was like, well, we have these 4 different options. It will be one of them. And over, the universe has said, no.
It's complicated.
It's complicated. It's multiple things. Galaxies form both bottom up and top down. Dark matter is looking more and more like it's going to have multiple explanations. And one of them could be, in part, that there is either a 5th, 4th, or an extra term to gravity. Both. The universe likes to do both, and it practices improv. And I love that it's going to be so much more complicated, and I am so grateful that I did all the classwork part of graduate school before dark energy was found, because it made the math so much more difficult, and I would have screwed up those exams. Our universe is far more creative than theorists have been in their predictions, and I love every moment of what we're discovering.
Yep. Yeah, astronomy is never going to stop.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I work with Fraser on Universe Today, and I end up getting a lot of articles, or doing a lot of articles about the early universe. And I went back a while back. I was looking for some reference, and I went back and looked at some of them, and I'm astonished at just the 3 or 4 years since I've been writing for him, how our ideas about galaxy formation in the early universe have changed. Yeah. And how the early universe is throwing us these curveballs nobody expected. And that's just been in the last couple of years.
And the timeline.
So I go back and I find an article where I say, well, the model is this. And then I have to write an article last week going, well, the model may be screwed up. Here we are.
Yeah. And all of these changes are now recorded in audio for infamy. And I really want to give these last 5 minutes to Aviva to celebrate what she has been essentially running since we had breakfast in 2012 in Beijing. Did I get the year right?
No, it's 2011 in Beijing for CAP meeting. And then 2012, of course, it's the IAUGA. But the thing that we talked in 2011 led me to be working with you. And here I am. from late 2011 to 2024. And I would like to add something that what we can see in 365 Days for Astronomy, aside from what Rich and Pamela said previously, we can see that at 2008 we start to discover the planet in the habitable zone, but not. And at that time we just have a few planets. Now we have more than 5,000 planets. So it was amazing to have this kind of journey for 15 years. We have so many discovery. We have so many new things that we learn. For example, gravitational wave, the first image of black hole, everything. We have the development from 2008 to 2024 that we can present for everyone during their maybe their leisure time or while they're working on something and they listen to our audio. So it's really good to be part to everyone's life. And I think something that I like from the 65 Days of Astronomy that I also work here that is it's an audio. It's something that people can carry everywhere while they're working, while they're going to school. And then this is the story that we recognize because they told us that it's Tanzania, right, Pamela? Or I that they download all this audio and then distribute it in the CD format.
Yeah, that was Astro for Dev did that
Yeah.
back in the early days of the Office of Astronomy for Development.
Yeah, and we have several, I think a few students as well, right, Rich? High school students, and back I don't really remember the time, but a few years ago we have students
Yeah.
also from Australia that for astronomy for kids.
Yeah.
So it's amazing that we can have many various podcasters from not only from the whole globe, but also with different backgrounds and different ages as well. And yeah, I hope that we keep going and be part of this amazing discovery of the universe.
And sadly, we are running out of time, and I'm hoping that you might be up during our last hour and join us in our last hour, which will be for you at 9 a.m. Aviva.
Okay, I'll be there.
Okay. And
Okay.
there is one of the things that we're struggling with is, as always, funding 365 Days of Astronomy. It's a collaborative podcast where people from all over the world send in their audio, but it takes money to pay for the hosting, to allow Rich and Aviva to do everything they do. And Aviva has no small job making sure we have audio every single day. And it costs us $45 a day to produce 365 Days of Astronomy. And there is the possibility of you to sponsor an episode. Back during the International Year of Astronomy in 2009, it was Preston who was editing it back then. I've remembered who was editing it.
That's right. Preston Gibson.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Preston would corner me to make me record the audio, and people were sending in tongue twisters and things like that to get me to struggle to read their dedications. And if you want to dedicate an episode to your favorite science teacher, to the kid that you're watching fall in love with astronomy, if you want to dedicate an episode to the memory of the person who made you fall in love with astronomy, there's a link in the chat. Once you go ahead and donate, it goes into the same counter. So you will see the ticker go up. The ticker is up there, actually. You will see the ticker go up when you sponsor 365 Days of Astronomy. And we will record that audio during the closing ceremonies today. So please donate. You'll get a link to the form. It will ask you for your dedication, and I will record it. And you can torture me in G-rated ways with this. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, Preston. People remember those days too. So, any parting words as we have everyone for the next panel waiting to come in? Aviva, the parting words are yours.
Okay, I really hope that more and more people can support us. Um, Not only support us with the funding, but also become part of our podcaster as well. And this thing is the last thing is something. It's from me that in this panel I only met Pamela and Mike in real life, so I'm really happy that I can see all of you. Usually, I only know your voice, but today I can see you. Well, it's virtually, but I like it. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for
Yes.
being part of
Thank you,
365
Aviva.
Days of Astronomy.
And I'm going to throw to break. We will be back in probably more than 2 minutes with our next panel, which is CosmoQuest's favorite science fiction, which really we can't shut up about. All right, we will be back in a few. See you in a moment. Bye-bye.